W.H. Auden, novelist and poet, modernist, novelist and poet. So, in memory of W.B. Yeats, it's clear that he was a really big fan of Yeats. There are many quotes that he has where he just talks up everything that Yeats did. Okay. So, because of that, a lot of his poems in structure are in the same wavelength, okay, same vein as Yeats. Okay, so there's a meter, there's a rhyme, there's some rhyme, okay, but the content, like Yeats, has nothing to do with romanticism. It is about real stuff. So this one, September 1st, 1939, okay, what's that right before? Does anybody know?
What's the what for?
Right before, this date is right before what major event in history? Yes, World War II. Yes, correct. Very good. So, another war to talk about. Okay. Another big deal. So, at this point in history, the whole country kind of felt like something was going on. Okay, that something was about to happen. They didn't necessarily anticipate another world war, but they knew something had to happen based on what had been going on. Okay, so he talks about real things, and he talks about serious things in all of his poetry. Okay, cool. So we're gonna go over one of his poems, and then can everybody see that? Is that big enough?
Make it a little bit bigger.
Is that good? More?
That's good.
Yeah. So just take a look at it before I read it and tell me what you see. There's some nature, yeah.
Rhyme.
There's rhyme, yeah. So, rhyme at the end of the lines, okay? Consistent, okay? Good. Now, I chose this one because the activity that we're gonna do, I don't want you to do this one. Most of his other poems are not about nature. Now this one's about nature, it's a bit of an exception. The other one's not so much. So we're gonna read it, we're gonna analyze it a little bit, and then I'm gonna have you get in groups of 5 or 6, okay? And you're gonna choose one of the poems that was on that slide that we just looked at, okay? And you're gonna analyze it as a group. If you would rather work as an individual, you can do that as well. But it's mostly a group activity, okay? Cool. Okay. Now the leaves are falling fast, nurse's flowers will not last. Nurses to the graves are gone, and the prams go rolling on. Whispering neighbors left and right pluck us from the real delight, and the active hands must freeze, lonely on the separate knees. Dead in hundreds at the back, follow wooden in our track, arms raised stiffly to reprove in false attitudes of love. Starving through the leafless wood, trolls run scolding for their food, and the nightingale is dumb, and the angel will not come. Cold, impossible, ahead, lifts the mountain's lovely head, whose white waterfall could bless travelers in their last distress. Okay. So, at first glance, there was rhyme. Okay, there was nature. Is it the same type of nature that's seen in romanticism? Not so much. Why? Why not? What about it isn't like romanticism? Let's talk about diction, first of all. So, let's talk about the words. What words do you see?
Dead.
Gone,
Yeah.
dead. What else?
False.
False,
Lonely.
lonely, good,
Graves.
yes,
Love.
good.
Stiffly.
Hey, Mr. Perry, you can stop.
No, it's okay.
Get the phone.
It's all right. If they ring again, I will just hand this to Keyshawn, who I'm sure will be able to film it quite well.
God bless.
It
Thank
says
you.
hands must freeze.
Yes, hands must freeze. So, the language, not so lovey-dovey and pretty, like the other nature poems that we've seen. Okay, it's, what's it about? Can you tell? So grapes, gone.
Your stuff dying?
Yeah. Okay. So autumn. What's autumn about? What happens when autumn comes?
The
Yeah.
leaves.
Okay. So the leaves fall from the trees because they die. Okay. And then winter comes and everything kind of stays dead. Okay. But autumn is when that initial death happened. So on the surface, yeah, it looks like it'll be pretty. It'll be about nature, but not so much. Okay. So we already talked about the rhyme. So there's end rhyme. Very good. What about the punctuation? Tell me about that. What do you think about that? What are the sentences like? Are they long? Are they short? They're pretty short. So they're about a stanza long each, okay? They don't linger much longer than that. What does that do for how we read the poem? Do we read it faster paced, or do we go slower? You kind of take your time with it, yeah, because it's not really, really short, really, really fast sentences, but it's not really, really long, really drawn out sentences either. So you do kind of take your time. You're just walking through it, okay? It's a pretty serious topic. So, nurses said the grapes are gone, the prams roll on. Whispering neighbors left and right, pluck us from the real delight, the active hands must freeze, lonely on separate knees. So, dead in hundreds at the back, follow in our track. It's a pretty, what's the tone? What's the tone of this, based on what we've said so far? What would you say? Sad. What else? Serious. Very good. What else? Dark would be a good one. Somber. These are very good words. Okay. So, what we just did is the normal thing. What we've been doing with analyzing poetry. We talked about syntax. We talked about tone. We talked about structure. Modernist versus romanticism. Okay. So that's exactly what I want you to do in your groups with the poems that you get. The poems that you're going to be reading are a lot longer, okay, than this. This is one of the shorter ones, which is also a reason why I chose it. So be prepared to read. Okay. You can pull them up on your phone once you get the title. Once you get in groups, I'm going to give you more instruction. So, groups of 5 or 6, because there aren't very many poems and I want everybody to do a different poem. So, groups of 5 or 6, go. Okay, is everybody settled in a group? Okay, so, if you're working individually, you can ignore these instructions. You'll be doing them all on your own anyway. So what I want you to do is I want you to choose a couple of people. I want you to assign roles to different people in the group to make sure things get done. So you're going to be analyzing, like we just did. And the poems are long, so you're going to need to read it. So you can assign a couple of readers, people who are going to read it out loud to the group. Make sure everybody hears it. Make sure everybody understands what's being said. Okay. Assign a couple of people to do that. Assign a person or maybe 2 people. I don't care, however many, to write. Okay. I've noticed that when we're in groups and people are writing, the person who's writing is the person who's coming up with a lot of ideas. So kind of spread that out. You can turn in more than one piece of paper. Okay. So whoever wants to write can write. It can be more than one person. So just make sure everybody's involved, everybody's doing something. Okay? So, I want every group, let's see, pick a number between no, here's how we're going to do it. Who wants this one? Does anybody want this poem? Have that one? Okay, write it down. Make sure you know that's the one. Because I don't want any repeats, okay?
Repeat the last one.
The last one?
Yeah.
The unknown citizen? Okay, got it. Who else? Night mail? Okay. Who you want? The second one? No. Whoever gets the second one, I have more information.
She said more information. I need the number.
No, we doing third.
Okay. Which one? Third? Okay. Here, do the second one. And I have more information for you. Did everybody choose one? What do you want? So, the only one left is refugee blues. Okay, so that one's yours. The good one. So, is everybody clear on what they're doing? Which poem they're doing? Awesome! Get started. So pull it up in your phone, read it out loud, and then analyze it. Okay. Go. So that
Don't read or analyze. He's reading. Turn and analyze.
It's not that long.
Let's kick this.
So,
Or read it. You have a next one, Bella? Get it? Is it bread? She wasn't kidding. This is actually pretty good. 2 seconds.
This is more than I read in a day. I used to read a lot, but I just tired.
I have a quiz.
Same. I haven't had a good night's sleep since I was
One day, okay. I just pulled up.
That's what I have right now.
are you guys ready?
We talked about that.
Don't need to put it
Be serious.
Yay. Shh. Okay, there's very little time left in class. Show of hands who thinks they're done. Okay, so there are people who are not, and that is okay. I'm not gonna make this homework because we're doing something else tomorrow. And also you worked in groups. So remember who you worked with. If you want to turn in this paper so lose it, you can turn it in up here. From the discussion that I heard you guys having, you guys are doing an incredible job. Did you like the poems that you chose?
Yes.
Okay. Hang on. Why did you like them? Those who said yes, why?
Different action.
More realistic. What else? What did I hear?
It made us think.
What did you think?
What, oh,
Yes.
they were different.
They were different. Different from just what we read?
Yeah.
Different from romantics? Okay, so do we like modernism so far more than romanticism?
Yes.
Yeah. That's okay. I really like Alden. He has a lot to say, and I think the way that he says it is really cool. We're gonna work on this more. So again, if you want to keep it, you can. But if you want to turn it in so that you don't lose it, in the meantime, you can